All right, so today's lesson is over polynomials. A lot of what I'm going to teach you today you already know, and a lot of it is brand new. So please make sure you're paying attention. I think that this is very easy, but again, a lot of it you've never seen, so you just need to be making sure that you're paying attention. So you guys know that in algebra, we call things by different words. For example, a coefficient, a variable. Do y'all remember what those things are? What is a coefficient? A number before the variable. So for example, if I have 2x, this number is the coefficient, and this number is the variable. Remember, a variable is a letter used to represent a missing number. Is everybody good with that? All right. So in algebra, we have what's called terms. A term is separated by addition and or subtraction signs. A term is separated by addition or subtraction signs. Okay, for example, an example of a term, and if you want to come over here because you're out of room like me, you can. An example of terms would be like 5x squared plus 3x plus 7. Okay, how many terms are right here? There are 3 terms because they're each separated by an addition sign. So this is a term, this is a term. If you want to write that, you don't have to if you don't want to, and this is a term. Is everybody good with the term? A polynomial is basically where it is any of those, like it's where you have one term or more. But there are some stipulations. A polynomial cannot have negative exponents. So no negative exponents. And it also cannot have division by a variable. It can have division, but the variable can't be on bottom. No division by variable. Okay, in language arts, y'all learned what a prefix is, right? What's a prefix? It's something like in the front of the word that kind of tells you about the word that you're going to read. So if I said bicycle, what's the prefix? And what does bi mean? 2, because it has 2 wheels. So when we're talking about polynomials, there are 3 types that we talk about, and if you look at the prefix, it's going to tell you what they are. What is a tricycle? Okay, what's that prefix is tri, and tri means 3. So basically a monomial has 1 term because mono means 1. So for example, 2x. That is a monomial because it has 1 term. Are y'all good? Everybody good with a term? Remember, it's separated by adding and subtracting. There's no adding and subtracting, so that's just a monomial. Okay, a binomial, what is it going to be? 2 terms. And an example would be like 2x plus 3. And a trinomial, 3 terms. So let's do like 2x plus y plus 3. Can you have more than a trinomial? Yes, but we just call them polynomials. Like if you have more than 3, then you would just say, oh, it's a polynomial, okay? All right, the next thing you need to know is a degree of a monomial. A degree of a monomial is based on the variable's exponents. So write that down. Based on the variable's exponents. So don't look at the coefficients, only look at the variable's exponents. If it's asking for the degree, you take the highest degree. So write that right here. Take the highest degree. Now, I'm going to end up changing one of these just so y'all can see it as a little bit of a harder problem, but look at this problem right here. Don't look at the coefficient. This is a what? What is that though? That's a coefficient. You don't look at the coefficient. Only look at the variable's exponents. So what is this term's power? 3. What is this term's power? Okay, I'm going to write that right here. Don't write the 3 because I'm going to change it in just a second. What is this term's power? 1. And what is this term's power? The 12 has an exponent of 1, but do we look at the coefficient or only the variable? So if I had a variable here, what would its exponent be? No, it would be 0 because it doesn't exist, right? It doesn't exist. All right. Now, I'm going to change this and add something. So put 2x to the third, y to the second. And pretend that was always there. If you have 2 variables with exponents, then to know the degree, you add those powers. So this power would be 3 plus 2, which is 5. So if I said, hey, in this polynomial, what is the degree? Then you would say it's 5 because it's the highest degree. If it wasn't there, it would have been 3 because 3 would have been the highest degree. It's that simple. It's just which one has the biggest. If there's more than one, you add them together. Now again, I'm going to remind you guys, if it doesn't have a variable, then its exponent is 0 because you're looking at the variable. Okay? All right. The next one wants you to write the polynomials in descending order so that the exponents decrease from left to right. Do y'all know what descending means? Descending means greatest to least. So if you want to write that, that's greatest to least. Now again, we're only looking at the exponents. That's what we're categorizing this by. We're not doing the coefficient, so don't even look at the coefficient. So this 15 and this 3 basically aren't even there, right? What is this exponent? Okay, and if this had an x, it would be an exponent of 0. So if I was going from greatest to least, which one has the biggest exponent? So negative x to the third would go first because it has the biggest exponent. Which one would have the next biggest exponent? Is this a positive or a minus? Always look to the left of it, guys. This minus goes with this x, right? So plus 15x. And then my last one with the smallest exponent would be plus 3. Are y'all good? Try the next one on your own. You're putting them in order from the biggest exponent to the smallest exponent. Now, the biggest mistake I see students make is they end up, for some reason, putting this negative sign with this one. So just make sure you're only looking at it like that. That's positive. Then that minus sign goes with that, and that positive goes with that. All right, which one has the biggest exponent? This one. So minus 4b to the 4th power. Which one has the next? This one. So plus 3b to the 3rd, and then plus b squared. How did y'all do? What are we only looking at? The exponents. All right. The next one says, write polynomials in order. The terms of a polynomial are always arranged, and y'all are going to notice this in algebra, and I need everybody paying attention. They're always arranged from either greatest to least or least to greatest. That's how it's correctly written. They're usually from greatest to least, okay? But this says they're either written in ascending or descending order. This one wants us to put the following examples in ascending order, and they only want us to use the powers of what? What does that mean? Only look at the exponents for the x. All the other ones don't matter, okay? What is ascending? Least to greatest. Y'all might want to write that down because you need to know that for your assignment. What are we only looking at? The exponents that belong to the x. All right, so which one of these is the least exponent? This 2. So this is going to go first. Negative x squared. Which one's the next smallest? The 3. So plus 5x to the 3rd. And which one is the next smallest? Plus x to the 4th. Are we good? Now again, what are we only basing this on? The powers of. So do we care about y's? No. Not at all. So look at this one. If you want, get out a highlighter and highlight those x's. Because you're only looking at the x's. Or circle them. Don't look at any other variable. Okay, so here this has an exponent of 3. What is this one going to have an exponent of if it doesn't have an x? 0. So this one would be the smallest, the least. So it's got to go first because it didn't even have an x. Are we okay? All right, so I'm just going to cross it out so I don't forget that I've already done it. Which one would be the next smallest x exponent? 3, 2, or what is this one? 3, 2, or 1? This one. So plus xy squared. That one's done. What are we only looking at, guys? Because some of you are looking confused. We're only looking at the x's exponent. Okay, which one's the next smallest? This one. And then this one. I'll go over it again. I think you're just overthinking it.
So why are we writing the y?
Why are we writing the y? Because it's part of the term. Good question. So somebody just asked, why are we writing the y when we're only caring about the power of x? Because it's part of the term, it belongs to it, but we're organizing it according to the x's exponents. It's just the way to organize it. Does everybody understand? We're not solving for anything. We're just rewriting it to organize it based. Do y'all want to try this one on your own?
Yes.
What are you only looking at? The x's exponents. And you're putting them from least to greatest, but you're writing the whole term. Okay, so the least one was this one. So it should have gone first. So I would have write that whole term, negative 5cx. Are you good? Okay. Then the next one with the least x exponent would be this one. So I would write that whole term, plus 15cx squared, and then this one would be last. How did y'all do? Good? So again, I realize y'all are like, but why are we doing this? Because you have to know the correct way to write a polynomial. You're not solving anything. You're just identifying them and organizing them in different ways. What we just did was ascending order. Now if you flip your page, what does it want us to do? Descending order. And what are we only going to look at? Because it says using the powers of x. Are y'all good? Now, don't do the third example because I'm going to add something in there. Don't do this one. Yeah, y'all can do the first one by yourself, but this time instead of going least to greatest, we're going greatest to least. Do the first one on your own. Just don't do the third one yet. Okay, which one had the greatest exponent? 4x to the 5th. Okay, which one had the next greatest exponent? Plus x to the 4th, because that's positive, so I put a plus sign. And then this one has a minus in front of it, so I got to keep that. How'd y'all do? Good? Y'all want to try the next one on your own? What are you only looking at? But if it doesn't have an x, then you can say that that exponent would be 0. It would be the smallest. Okay, what was the biggest? This one right here. So x to the 4th, y to the 2nd. Okay, that one's done. What's the next biggest? X. This one. But what has to go in front of it? That minus sign. Okay, what's the next biggest? This one. And this one would be the smallest because it doesn't even have an x. Okay, so it would be plus y to the 3rd. You can't forget it. It's still part of the polynomial. It's just the smallest because it doesn't even have an x. Now for the last one, just to give it a little more emphasis, we're going to add to the 6th power right here. And now y'all can go do it on your own. Okay, which one was the biggest? Negative x to the 6y squared. I'm done. Now which one? Plus, so I got to put a plus sign. I can't just write it. 3x to the 3rd y. Now this one. And then the last one. Oops. How did y'all do? Good? All right, the next part says write this polynomial with the exponent decreasing from left to right. So if it says decreasing, that means greatest to least. Well, what exponent are we going to look at because it's the only variable that there is? Yeah, so this one didn't say in terms of or powers of x. So we're looking at the y's. Greatest to least, which one would I write first? Negative 2y squared. Now what? Plus 5y plus 9. Now it says in that same polynomial, what's the degree?
2.
You pick the biggest degree, right? So it's 2. And what's the leading coefficient? That means when you've arranged it, what's the first coefficient? Negative 2. Okay, the next one says, is this a polynomial? Yes or no? Yes, it is. If it is, what's its degree? Because that's the biggest exponent. And classify it by its number of terms. How many terms does it have? So we would call it a trinomial. It goes fast. So in the bottom part, we're going to write a check mark if it's a polynomial. If it is, then we're going to classify it by its degree and by its terms. Are y'all ready?
Yes.
No.
What's the definition of a polynomial? It just has to have one term. Is that a term?
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, it's a polynomial.
Seems to be the same.
Classify it by its degree. Well, remember when we talked about degrees, we only look at the variable.
0.
So does it have a variable? So it would have an exponent on that variable of 0. And then how many terms?
Mono.
1. So we call it a monomial. Okay, the second one, is it a polynomial? Yes. What's its biggest degree? 2. How many terms does it have? So what would I call it? A trinomial. Okay, the next one. I don't know if we forgot to write this or not. Is it a polynomial? No. The reason, you cannot have a variable for an exponent. So no variable for exponent. How about this one?
No.
Why not?
Because it's negative exponent.
No negative exponent. To be considered a polynomial, you cannot have a negative exponent.
Yes.
Is this a polynomial? Yes. What's its highest degree? Now, hey, remember, if it has more than one variable, you add their degrees. So this has a variable, this variable has a exponent of 1, and so does this one. So which one of these terms would be bigger? This one. And 4 plus 1 is? No, you only use the one term. Okay, how many terms are there? So what would I call this? A binomial. Okay, this one, is it a polynomial?
Yes.
Yes. What's its degree?
2.
No.
3.
3. Why? Because 2 plus 1 is 3. How many terms are there? Why is there one term? Because there's no plus and minus signs, right? So it is a monomial. Okay, the next one. Is it a polynomial?
No.
No. Why not? No negative exponent. You don't have to write it because you've already written it if you don't want to. How about the next one?
Yes.
Yes, it is. What's its highest degree? 4. Remember, you take the highest degree of the highest term. So 4. How many terms are there?
3.
So we call it a trinomial. This one.
No.
No, why not?
No divided by.
You can't divide by a variable. No divide by variable. The next one?
Yes.
Yes, it is. What's its degree?
6.
Why? What's this degree right here? 3. What's this degree? So 6 is the biggest. How many terms?
2.
So it is called a binomial.
Yes.
The last one?
Yes.
Yes. What's its degree? 1. And it's called a monomial. Don't put it up. I'm going to give you all one more example that might confuse you on your assignment. Are y'all ready?
No.
Okay, the last one.
We got it right?
Yeah, just write it yourself. Let's do 4a squared b plus 2b squared minus a squared b. Is it a polynomial?
Yes.
Yes. What's its degree? What's its degree? 3. What's its classified?
Trinomial.
No. Nope.
Binomial?
Huh?
Poly, whatever. Polynomial. Bi?
Why?
Because it has 2 numbers.
No. It's got, how many terms are here?
3.
So I could call it a trinomial, but that's not right. So why is that not right?
I don't know why is it not the same degree.
Y'all remember the lesson we learned on combining like terms? Do y'all see 2 terms that are alike?
Yeah.
Do y'all see these?
I don't know.
Could you combine those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's binomial. See, I said it.
So it becomes 2 terms, because if you can combine the terms, then there's only really 1 term for those. Because I could combine this one and this one, do y'all see how you can combine A's with A's, B's with B's? You can combine A squareds with A squareds and B's with B's. But they have to be perfectly the same with those variables. If you can combine them, then this would actually become 4 minus 1, which is 3. It would become 3a squared b. So it is actually a binomial.
I said.
That's on your assignment today. Okay, so you want to make sure that if you can combine some, that you would put those. Make sure that you read the directions extremely carefully. Number 1, so I'm on this side that says 9-1A skills practice. So be on this side with me. Number 1 has 2 answers. It says, state whether the expression is a polynomial. That means you better have a yes or a no. Then, if it is a polynomial, then you need to write monomial, binomial, or trinomial. So, for example, number 1, is it a polynomial?
Yes.
So my answer would say yes, comma, how many terms are there?
2.
Can any of them be combined?
No.
So it is a binomial. Is everybody okay? And I don't think there's any combining on that part. Now, number 7 and 8 are kind of challenging. They're kind of like that one that we did on the warm-up today. So this one says, write a polynomial to represent the area of the shaded region. Well, I'm going to do the area of a rectangle minus the area of a rectangle, right? How do you find the area of a rectangle? So I would do length times width length times width minus length times width. Well, they gave you a length and a width. Are y'all with me? So which one would I write for the first one? The bigger rectangle, right? So how would I write that? So A times B minus X times Y. That would be your answer. Okay, I'm not going to write the final answer for this one, but I'll write the original thing. So this is a square, and I'm going to subtract the area of a circle. So how do you find the area of a square? Oh, I'm not going to write anything for y'all, because once I write it, it's it. So it'd be side times side minus, and what's the area of a circle? Pi r squared. Y'all might want to write that down. Pi r squared. But how would you write side times side technically? Side squared. S squared. All right, number 9 through 14 says find the degree of each polynomial. Remember that you're taking the largest degree of the variable. So look at number 9. Does it even have a variable? So what's the degree? 0. Write it down. That's your answer. So let's look at number 13. You have to look at all of them and each term. What's the biggest degree here? 3. What's the biggest degree here?
2.
And 0. Which one's the biggest?
3.
So that would be my answer. Okay, the next section says arrange the terms of each polynomial so that the powers of x, so what are you only looking at on this part? The x's. So I'm only looking at the x's, and what does it want it in? What does ascending mean? Least to greatest. But you're only looking at the x's. So if it helps you, you get that highlighter out and you only highlight those x's, just like we did on our notes. Then the bottom says descending order, only looking at the x's. So that's greatest to least. And then the back is exactly like the front. Except there was one of the word problems I was going to do with y'all tomorrow. I think it was 23. 23, you can circle it. I'll do it with y'all tomorrow.